Cleaning my 21-year-old.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 30th joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. The reason for the meeting is to have a presentation by Mr. Scollins on the revenue estimates for FY20 operating budgets. So with that, I'd like to open our meeting. We will keep our meeting open and go into our regular meeting at 7 o'clock.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. We just need to open our school committee side of things, if you don't mind. Our chair and vice chair are not able to be here tonight, so I'm going to stand in for Ms. Lord. If I could have a motion to open our school committee meeting?
Motion to open.
Second that?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to
Thank
go.
you.
All right. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to all. It's great to see everybody here to review the FY20 revenue forecast for our 2020 vision.
Did we catch that? Can we write that down somewhere? That was good.
As we're all wearing glasses. Well, not you.
Not going to spend a lot of time on the milestone calendars because they're still in development. But what I can tell you is some of the things that haven't changed is the start of the process, which was earlier this month when we had a joint council administrative leadership meeting tonight to review the revenue forecasts. And then budget guidance will be given to all of the departments, and everybody, all the departments start working on their budget requests, and we'll have the first round of those in December. And then the piece that's currently under review and be sorted out in the next 2 weeks is the review process of the budgets between the Board of Selectmen, the Advisory Committee, and the Town Manager. So we're sorting that out, but what will ultimately end the same is we'll have town meeting on May 13th to vote the budgets, and the budgets will be finalized in early April. So more to come on that in a couple weeks, and when that's finalized, we'll send that out to everybody. Process is pretty much the same. Same goes for the Advisory Committee review schedule. So that's not definitely involved. That's to be determined, probably sorted out in the next 2 weeks. What I wanted to get right into is the general fund operating revenue expense estimates. So FY20 revenue is preliminarily estimated to come in 2.76 million over FY19. I might have a typo on somebody that's doing something different, but it's 2.76 million over FY19. But fixed costs are initially estimated to be $1.8 million higher, and that's driven entirely by assumed health insurance and pension assessment increases. So the net available estimate for operating budgets is 1.58 million, and we have placeholders for the municipal and the school budgets at this point in time. Obviously, we haven't truly begun the process yet to develop the budget, so these are truly just placeholders, but they're based on best estimates at the time, as we do every year. So we're certainly predicting a balanced budget. A couple of things to highlight on the revenue side. As you can see, we've got 4 major categories. There's taxation, state aid, local receipts, and other available funds. So on the taxation side, part of the 2.747 million increase is 1.18 million associated with the 2.5% increase that we're allowed to increase the levy by annually. There's also another just over $1 million in estimated new growth tax that we're anticipating for fiscal 20. There's a reduction in the excluded debt tax because as we're amortizing the debt, there's less that needs to be raised on the taxpayers, so $62,500. And we've decreased our snow and ice and overlay reserve estimates by about $345,000. So 2.47 million net taxation, pretty much driving the revenue plus here. Net state aid, again, unfortunately, it's still early. The governor's got to put out his first budget proposal in January, but based on the trends and everything we've seen, there's really no good reason to assume anything other than flat state aid again. It was actually down about 300,000 last year. So flat is, And that was all related to the charter school, based on the estimates that the state uses to come up with that number, which we pointed out the flaw in their process, and we're actually hoping that the state will actually review their process and sync it up with the timing of when enrollments are actually known here in April, or known for the most part, but they have, the state has continually used a higher number than what the lottery ultimately shows and the graduations actually show. And that ends up with our cherry sheet assessment being reduced an additional couple $100,000 at the beginning of the process. And those are the numbers that we have to go with. We have to assume that we're going to pay those funds to the charter school, and then at the end of the year, what we've seen the trend is that they've gone away. But there's nothing you can do with those funds because you have to appropriate the pay. So hopefully we'll sort that out with the state on that. But it's been flat for the last dozen years, so no surprise there. Local receipts, which is your payment of taxes, stadium payments, excise taxes, hotel tax, meals tax, fines, permits, fees, etc. Big chunk of our revenue stream, 10.8 million estimated for budgeting purpose for next year, but it's off from the prior year by about 444,000. And it's driven, the reduction is driven exclusively by a reduction in stadium payments, which is a function of the number of events that they have at the stadium. So 2 years ago, there was a peak year, 3.8 million in stadium payments. That dropped the next year to 2.4 million, 3.4 million, and then it dropped this past year to about just under 2.7 million. So it's been pretty steady decline in the number of events, and I think that's been telegraphed that we can expect to see that maybe at least in the near term as well. So that's now factored in to our forecast. The good news is that we traditionally only budget the minimum guarantee from the lease agreement. And so what that does is that allows for the remainder to recharge our free cash balance for capital and operating purposes. But this local receipts forecast number, 10.8 million, consistent with every year, this is net of $1.5 million that we're assuming we're going to collect above the $10.8 million, but we're not planning to budget it because that will recharge our free cash, which is something we look to do annually, is to recharge free cash by about $2 million each year. That's sort of been the secret sauce and how we've been able to stay pretty stable for quite some time. Basically, you're not spending everything that the town pulls in. You're budgeting less than that, and that way that gives you a cushion, when the tide turns in the economy. So that number, 10.8 million, is geared towards generating $1.5 million in free cash recharge. Other available funds up 741,000, primarily due to a free cash increase in commitment by 572,000, increase in ambulance receipts funding 97,500, an increase in enterprise and revolving overhead allocations of 72,000. So, in essence, balanced. Again, health insurance. Unfortunately, there's another late hit that I had to add into the health insurance budget estimate. Not sure if you're aware of the grand bargain that was passed in July by the legislature and signed by the governor that's now going to put a new payroll tax into place. 0.63% split evenly between the employer and the employees across the state to cover some social benefits. But that will cost the town of Foxborough about $150,000 a year. So, and that's a multiplier effect, every year. I encourage everybody to contact your legislator, like I have, to encourage them to find another solution so we can add that back to our forecast. And then the pension, the Norfolk County's been aggressively funding that, which is good because it's set to be fully funded, the pension liability, by 2031, so they can go up by 10% every year. So This is the 5-year look of revenue and expense. I'm not intending to go through every line unless somebody has questions on any line, but what I want to draw your attention to is a couple of things. First, the fact that the forecasts for all 5 years here reflect balanced budgets, and the fiscal 19 through fiscal 23 years included debt for the town hall, meaning debt that we're paying for within the budget, no tax increase. And then we're also assuming here that we'll be funding the Borough School debt service for fiscal years 21 through 23, also with included debt. And that's not a small number, that's a good sized number. And the impact of the included debt over these 5 years provides the equivalent of a 2.71% tax cut to the residents, because if these were excluded debt projects, taxes would have had to have been voted to be increased, and if they were, then taxes would be 2.71% higher, for 20 years. So I know we've been talking about for a few years about somehow being able to tax below the levy limit and still maintain services. So ta-da, we've actually accomplished that by doing these projects with included debt. So that 2.5% permanent reduction, or at least for 20 years, is now in place with the included debt for the town hall and to be for the borough school. So in my book, that's mission accomplished. What we've been trying to engineer here is to be able to ensure that any incremental positive cash flow the town receives is able to ultimately benefit directly the taxpayer. And the direct benefit is by not having to ask them to raise their taxes for these major building projects. So nice savings there. There will be some challenges in the out years, but I know we can do it. So if you look at the debt service included line, which is bolded, you'll see it at $603,000 in 19 and $591,000 in fiscal 20. So that includes the town hall included debt, but then it jumps up in FY21 by over 1.3, almost 1.4 million, and continues at that level. And that's where we've assumed that the debt service on 15.34 million estimated borough school borrowing costs will kick in. And so the trick is to, how do we absorb that within the operating budget? So if I can draw your attention then down to the revenue side, the non-recurring line that's shaded free cash for operating. So you see in the current budget, we're only using $149,000 to balance this year's, the budget that we're in, the year that we're in right now. I proposed, in order to balance the budget, that we would use about $720,000 for fiscal 20. But in order to absorb the debt service that's going to kick in from the borough school, 21, 22, 23, our free cash utilization would need to go up to about 2.2 million before we get some relief from new growth taxes. So I'm going to show you how that relates to our free cash position over the same time period, because all this is showing you is sort of the P&L of it. Yes, here's the free cash utilization, gets us to balance, but what does that mean to our free cash balances? Are we still in a solid position or not? So I'll get to that on another slide. But that's the 5-year view, and I feel pretty good about this because it includes just about everything that we know. So when, say, the fire grant, the SAFER grant for the 4 new firefighter positions falls away, so we have to incur 100% all of that cost. But it also includes, offsets like the benefit from the solar farms that we have. So it's reduction in electricity bills, on the town and school side. And other savings opportunities as well. We're counting on regionalized dispatch to save us the funds that we expected in the out years as well. And any of the items that you've heard discussed that was either an increased cost or a benefit, everything's been included, that we're aware of. And of course, it's a moving target. It changes every day, but it's pretty good for planning purposes. That's the 5-year view. Same thing for capital. This is the latest summary of the general fund capital plan. It's fully supported by estimated funding sources. Of course, all projects are reprioritized annually. You know, this is not set in stone. The FY19 was what was voted at the annual and the special. And then FY20 to 23 are placeholders. As the budget process for FY20 rolls along, all the departments will revisit their requests for not only FY20 but for the next 4 years after that as well. But currently everything is manageable. I think a key thing to hone in on here is the free cash utilization component that's estimated to be needed in the out years, particularly in fiscals 21 and 22, where we are estimating to have the biggest draws on free cash to balance the operating budget because of the debt service. So the good news is that the nature of the projects that are currently in the 5-year plan are such that there are other funding sources, or there currently is not a outsized need for free cash. So it's going to work nicely for us, and it'll be important for the CIP committee to be cognizant of that. I do have, I need to talk about placeholders up on the very top line in fiscal years 22 and 23. These are by no means any definites, but they're placeholders because they have been spoken about. That's what we like to do with capital, is if we're aware of something that's of significance, that we should put it down. So we've got a $4 million rough estimate for a substation in 22. But as you know, that's going to have to go through a process. There may be mitigation associated with that. So there's no certainty. And so that this does not impact our cash needs, the assumption is that if it's not mitigation, it's excluded debt. Because we're pretty much at our max with included debt at this point in time. Same thing as a borrow-tailor feasibility study that's at least on the plan for $700,000 for FY23. Many years ago, there was talk about doing something for the Council on Aging building. And so there's a placeholder that I was asked to put in the out year every year for 7 years of roughly $4 million that I have in there for that as well. But again, that's I don't think anybody's heard anything about that. And I know Bill has, but it's nothing known, nothing certain, but it's just something that's been talked about. So I wanted to at least put it down. That's typically how somebody would start to socialize a major project that they may want to pursue, is by at least requesting it to be put in the plan, the 5-year CIP plan, but there's no plans for it. Everything else is pretty much pretty standard. The roadway construction paid for by Chapter 90 money and meals tax. All the ambulance-related equipment fully funded by ambulance reserve receipts. And then your standard school and municipal equipment, again, exceptions in FY19 for the larger numbers because of the track and stands and the fire engine grants, $1,150,000 in the FY19 column for municipal. But outside of that, in the out years, everything is looks like a standard year. This is our estimated taxable property growth. I'm showing you 5 years of history here and 5 years of projections. These assumptions are developed by the chief assessor and building commissioner. The FY19 new growth was just certified yesterday, so I only had an opportunity to change the line here in the box to 1.2 million, but if you look up, you'll see that we were looking for just under 800,000. So we had $400,000 overachieve. That's tax, not value. But because it's so fresh, I need to sit down with the Board of Assessors and the Chief Assessor and determine how much of that is early for next year and how much of that is a true overachieve. Because based on that, I will adjust the forecast, because that's going to be an upside. So hypothetically, let's say 200,000 was planned for FY20 and it came in this year, great. 200,000 one-time money that's available this year, but if the other 200,000 is unanticipated, is not in the next year plan, then that's like a new annuity that we weren't counting on, 200,000 per year. So that's a good news. I'm hoping more of it is unplanned, but we're not sure yet. But the key thing to note here is Route 1 commercial. So that's where we're expecting big things, as we've been talking about for some time. And we've got in the out years, fiscal 22 and 23, looking for 50 million in new value in fiscal 22 and 150 million in new value in fiscal 23. And from my perspective, I'll speak for myself, I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. So it may not happen in that time frame, but based on everything that we're aware and the marketing that's going on and the acquisition of property that's going on up there, I'm not going to be surprised at all expecting it. And if it doesn't come in, because the reason to show this slide is to show the impact that all this new growth for each year translates into new taxable revenue. So that's significant. 1.6 million all in FY22, 3.4 in FY23. As you're seeing, our trend here, at least the last 3 years, has been overachieves, which is good. But if for whatever reason, if major projects going to get pushed out, or we don't see the full realization, ultimately that's going to translate to some budgetary challenges that we'll have, particularly in starting in fiscal 23. Nothing that's not manageable, but that's in essence the commitment and/or risk that we're taking by putting the borrowed school debt service as included debt in the budget. So there's no escaping that. But like I said, this is a matter of when rather than if, in my opinion. Speaking of the borrowed school debt, again, the project, most everybody knows, 34.67 million, 15.34 million in included debt. We put $4 million of cash into this project to buy down the debt. So 2.1 million came from capital stabilization, $1 million from overlay surplus, and 900,000 from free cash. The MSBA will contribute up to 15.33 million. And bids are expected to be solicited for the project summer of 19. Construction is anticipated to start fall of 2019. And bonding, based on the bidding, will occur in January of 20. We don't need the cash right up front when they start, because we've provided $4 million in cash for the project, and that's certainly going to carry us for the first few months. And the debt service payments, by bonding in January, debt service payments don't start until the next fiscal year, so until fiscal 21 as included debt. So this is the other, I'll call it the comfort piece, seeing the big commitment that we're making to the operating budget and free cash in fiscal 21 and 22. This gives you sort of the higher view of our free cash estimates. You can see the history of the free cash estimates. So projected free cash certifications are estimated over the FY19 through 23 in the $5 to $6 million range annually. The FY19 number actually is certified. The annual free cash utilization for those years is expected to range between 2 and 2.5 million here. That's between used for next year's operating budget, next year's capital, or current year purposes. And therefore, our ending free cash balances for the out years are projected to be in the range of $3 to $4 million. So good place to be. We like to be over 2. So the fact that we're with all of this new expense loaded onto the operating budget, feeling pretty good that this is the way that the town's recurring revenue stream is actually shaping out. So pleased about that. That's the end of the high view. So before we talk about next steps, I'm happy to take any
Anybody
questions.
on the school committee have any questions about anything? Anybody on this group? David, I think you said you might have had a few.
I do. So is it coincidence that the increase in fixed costs is almost identical to the 2.5% increase?
I noticed that. It's unfortunate, in my view, that it's such a large number on the cost side, equaling the entirety of the 2.5% increase. But you can see just right there alone how quickly the 2.5% that you're allowed to increase the levy by just gets consumed by
I think that was my bigger point.
Yeah.
That even though we're increasing by 2.5%, that 2.5% covers the increase in fixed costs.
Exactly.
And if you also look at the fixed costs, I think it was on the cherry sheet slide. Where was it?
Fixed costs on page 6.
Yeah. It all goes back to the charter school assessment, which continues to go up.
Exactly, and that's to be expected that it would rise a little bit because the way the formula works, whatever our average cost per pupil is times the number of students that they have, and it's safe to assume that they'll have a steady number of students. But the fact that it would go up dramatically by hundreds of thousands of dollars, we've proven out, unfortunately, is just because of the state's methodology for arriving at the numbers that they lock in at the end of March, which should be adjusted because within a week or two of that, we know what the number is going to be. And superintendent of the charter school, agrees with that. He gets the phone calls, he shares in the frustration. So it's a state process. So, we've started some dialogue with the Department of Ed on that, and hoping to make some progress this year where they can actually make an adjustment to the enrollment number that is going to be at the charter school in the fall. If they can do that, that would slice out a couple $100,000 out of, or add a couple $100,000 to our cherry sheet 8, because that's where it gets deducted from.
Right, it's on page 12. And your school aid is basically flat, and your assumes a 1% increase, which is basically flat, yet your charter school assessment goes up
Right.
much more than the 1%.
Mm-hmm. That's the way it's been trending.
So,
And then it gets some artificial help with the way the formula is managed.
then can you just go through the tax, explain the tax cut, how the included debt equates into a 2% or 2.71% tax cut?
Sure. So, as you know, the town has two options to pay the debt service on a major building project. And traditionally, in this town, and in most towns, there's a ballot question that goes to the voters to ask the voters, will they support this building project, whether it be the Borough School, the Town Hall, what have you, will they support that by raising their taxes to do that? And those tax monies are dedicated towards, if they vote in the affirmative, are dedicated towards the extinguishing of that debt service over 20 years. So that's traditionally how it works. That's the way it worked for the public safety building, the library, the high school, the Ahern, the IGO, and most other building projects in town. But with these two building projects, by taking the long view of what the town's recurring revenue stream is likely to be, we were able to determine that we could squeeze those in to the operating budget, so not go to the voters and ask for a tax increase, but work it within the revenues that the town is already receiving and pay all of that debt service, which approaches $1.8, $1.9 million in the peak year in '21. So it's basically the town's acknowledging we have the cash flow to do this. And I will tell you, we definitely have the cash flow to do this through FY22. We're going to need some of that new growth on Route 1 to cause that to level off, come back and normalize.
So taking that long view approach, right? We were able to contribute almost $4 million in cash towards the Borough School project. Does it make sense to continue to fund the capital stabilization account through with excess free cash, rather than just keeping it in free cash, and start putting money away in anticipation of, the Taylor School or the substation or Council of Aging, just the next big project, whether it's, $300, $500, or $1 million, whatever we can do to start putting away, some free cash, so we know that we have a place to draw from, and it's just not relying on that dirty word called free cash.
Right. Yeah, no, I fully support capital stabilization. That's why we set that up over 10 years ago, initially with about $500,000. And the thing about capital stabilization is either you're in a position to add to it or you're not. So we were fortunate, the town, in that we were in a position to add to it, and with the knowledge that there is going to be a major building project on the horizon that we're going to need to borrow for, whether it's included debt or excluded debt is a footnote, but the reality is that we're going to need to borrow. So if you can substantially reduce your borrowing costs by putting money away into capital stabilization, I think it's the way to go, and that's what we've proven here. We've cobbled together $4 million that now we do not have to borrow, which if we did, that debt service probably would not fit within the budget. So you had to approach it multiple ways. So yeah, I will always be supportive of anything that we can afford to put in capital stabilization.
The board will recall, we actually did that a couple of years ago because we had that situation where the additional money was available. And we put it in that, so it's almost like an investment. We put the money into that account, and then we're able to use that as a pay down for the debt. Because we know this project is coming out. Just a matter of a couple of years out, and we're able to buy that debt down, obviously, right off the bat.
Clark, you have any questions?
Can we go back to the charter school again for a quick second?
Sure.
We're far from the only community that's having this issue. When you said you were going to the Department of Education to discuss it, is this as a group with other communities, or is this as an individual community?
Well, if you'll indulge me, I'll explain. The town manager and the school business administrator, myself, we actually went and made a presentation to the Joint Committee on Education at the State House to talk about issues with regards to charter school funding, one of which I know the board supported, that we get the full allocation of the formulaic reduction of our assessment, which of course they didn't do. But we also took that opportunity to discuss with the legislators this issue as well, and asked if they could do anything. And so nothing has come of that yet, so we have actually been going through the actual channels of the people within the Department of Ed who actually manage this process of ultimately determining and cranking out, here's your charter school assessment. So we pinpointed exactly where the issue is. And we're on record, we've copied our, we've included our legislators, on this as well, and made it very clear that our expectation is that this will be sorted out before the next budget cycle, meaning by this coming March, they will have corrected this formula. So I have that in my particular file. I'm going to be following up. I know exactly who to speak with, and the superintendent over at the charter school is also supportive, because they've got, although they benefit from the cash flow that comes out initially from the town, but at the end of the year, there's no net benefit to them other than a cash flow kind of beginning of the year.
Mr. Chairman, I could just add to that, it was interesting when we made the presentation to the state legislature that there was no disagreement as to what we were presenting. They actually concurred with that there was an issue there and that it needs to be addressed. They just weren't sure on how they could do it and how they could do it within this present fiscal year. But we made it abundantly clear that this is affecting a lot of people, not just us.
I know, again, through the chair, I know at one point, was it a couple of years ago, that it was Lowell or Chelmsford or Lawrence set up to start something that we jumped on board with?
Right. We passed in fact, that was the, I think that was the bill that actually allowed us to get before the subcommittee, which allowed us to get that presentation in, because they realized it was an important issue.
Thank you.
Jim, you got anything?
Yeah, just as we're looking at the upcoming budget and then the projecting it through 2023, the direction from the school and from the town side of this, the choices that we have, level expenses under the contract increases, level services, or a new term that came up a while ago was level services with service enhancement. What are we projecting over the next 5 years under which category? I'm assuming level expenses is out. Are we level service or are we level enhanced services? Because it seems like we've gone in that direction without a lot of discussion over the last couple of years.
One of the main reasons why the town manager asked that we actually list these out, so we get direct, affirmative direction on how to direct the departments. But to your point, Jim, I mean, any one of these is an option, depending upon what the policy board's pleasure is. But typically, it's been a level services, at least in the last few years, it's been a level services budget development that's happened.
So looking at the CIP and the 5-year projections, you're assuming level service?
Correct.
To bring that out over the 5 years?
Correct.
But I think, to be fair, the 5-year projection, in other words, like the school committee's projection, did assume expense increases, it did assume contractual increases, and, it did assume that there would be some enhancements in the process as it was going. So our 5-year budget, which is what's within the financial constraints right now, and percentage-wise is obviously where we were dictated to be type of thing, that it was developed in that thing. It was because we don't have, at the time we did that, we don't have obviously any direction as to where we should be doing this.
Yeah.
So it was done based on what the previous years were done.
Correct.
So we just keep marching the 5-year out based on that until we get some kind of direction to change.
Okay, and that's why I'm bringing this up, and I'm not stepping on you guys have your own goals and objectives for the school, but when things come up over the last couple of years of we're hiring new people, we're bringing in new stuff, and it's we're growing with the needs. Well, if we're growing with the needs and we're enhancing, we need to have that discussion that it's no longer a level service because we're providing more services. So the question is, who's asking? What avenue do they have to ask for? When does it get discussed? Rather than at the end of the budget, when we have extra money, we put it in there and say, well, it's needed. But it's who asked for it and how do we get that in there, make that decision so there's clear direction to the department heads when they're looking at their budget. And then there's a discussion over the next 5 years. Are we projecting that the population's going to increase? We need this department, which we've never had before. So that's an enhancement. But we have very little discussion at this board about it, and we're kind of chasing our tails when something's needed. It just kind of gets put in there because it makes sense, everyone agrees, but there's no affirmative decision.
And that's exactly why
That's it.
we've listed out like this. We want dialogue around this so we can get proper direction from the policy board.
But I guess so my question is, up till now, even this year that we're finishing, level service not enhanced, because I've heard,
Well, we've had some enhancements, but we've also, the direction I typically provide everyone is that we take a look at ways in which we can make our organization more efficient, and if there's ways to save money within the organization that could allow us to do enhancements, then we certainly would consider that. There's no question that the biggest challenge we face is not necessarily from the community itself, but from the outside pressures that are placed upon us as a community, as any other community in Massachusetts or across the country for that matter. Federal regulations, state regulations, those kind of pressures require that we provide additional services to meet those needs. So the direction I typically provide people in the budget process is to, let's try and, if we can make it work within the existing parameters of your budget process, look at your efficiencies, look at your ways in which you've made your operations work better, so that you can try and do it within existing dollars. If you take a look at the budgets, for the most part, there's certainly some increases that you can point to in terms of this current fiscal year. But there were a lot of budgets that didn't go up all that significantly, that much. And the reason why is because they were able to use savings that they achieved in their organization to try and offset those proposed increases. You can't always do that, because the reality is that, budgets for health insurance and pensions, as you can see, take up a significant amount of the money that we're projecting to be used. So we have to be careful, and it's always our bottom line is that we present a balanced budget that works. If we can enhance things, we certainly will do that. If we can't do that, we'll certainly tell people we can't afford it. And those discussions occur all the way through the process, not just at the very end, at the very beginning as well, and throughout the budget process. And it occurs even, in front of the advisory committee. It occurs with this board. It also occurs with the department heads directly. When I meet with them directly, we have those conversations as well.
I also think it's I mean, I know Randy already went through this, and I've been involved with these conversations on this, but, the free cash figure and the usage of that over the next 5 years is a critical component as to how we, are going to keep these balanced budgets and afford to pay for things like the borough within the debt. That said, when you look at these financials, it basically is telling you that we do have to have some fiscal management here to control the cost going forward if we want to survive those debt payments without creating, a blip somewhere down the road because we just didn't account for it. So I think my opinion is, I don't know how Randy feels about this, but my opinion is that we are, I'm not going to say in tight, strapped budget constraints, but we're definitely in a very fixed, controlled environment now, especially for the next 5 years, and especially when you look out 2 and 3 years when you've got the higher use on free cash, based on that bonding requirement. I don't think we have a lot of leeway right now to have expansion, just for the sake of having expansion. I think it's going to have to be very well documented and approved to get, I would think, to get the board of selectmen and school committee. Yes, that makes sense, because we just added $1 million of debt.
okay. So I think it's not a criticism. I'm very happy with the numbers and the discussion. But to your point, it's got to be if somebody wants an extra service, right? So you separate the mandated requirements that we need to do. Okay, so it's level service plus we don't have a choice. And you always have increased salaries and insurance. So if somebody wants to come in, what I'm hearing is that there's an option right now that, well, if your department can cut over here and save it, we'll add it. But that's not documented and that's not discussed here.
Oh, no, we actually do that. We do that. We have that conversation a lot throughout the process. I think what Bill has alluded to, and like it or not, by doing what we've done in terms of taking on the added debt service, we've effectively put downward pressure on the budget process. because now we're pretty limited as to what we can do. And that was okay by design, because we've built the organization to a place where it's okay right now. We can survive that. There's, in the outer years, if you take a look at if everything goes as planned with the development on Route 1, we may have a little more leeway to consider things. And who knows what's going to happen in 5 years? None of us know that.
Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing, and I understand the downward pressure.
Right.
But again, my question is, if a department comes and wants to add something because a neighborhood wants it, or another department amenity because there's a need now,
Right.
all right?
Yep.
Considering the downward pressure, and we find a way that 3 departments can save on something, and we can add it.
Yep.
What's that process that we no longer have level service because we're adding an increased service? And if our direction is level service, and we're projecting 5 years of level service, if it can work out, and you guys can work magic and move numbers, we have an additional service that we're going to provide. Who has the say in that? And how does it get
Well,
back?
ultimately, and all the policy boards do, this board, the advisory committee, the town meeting ultimately has those says. All we do is we provide the options for you to consider those things. Ultimately, and we do advocate certain things because we think, based upon what we hear from the operating departments, that these are needs that they have. Ultimately, you all can say no, and it's one of the things that we've heard, during the past year, is that, well, the advisory committee is indicated to us that they want to have, and they want the board of selectmen to have input on all the selectmen's budgets, and we're fine with that. We're not objecting to that. It's just that that's a departure from what's been done in the past, and so we have to build that into our process to make that happen, because it's all built on a timeline that makes it all work, so we can make town meeting in May, as described by the process. So we wanted to make sure that if it's going to be a departure from the process, that we make sure it fits within that time frame. Having said that, we're fine with the process. Ultimately, if this community says, you know what, we don't want to do that, that's not up to us. It's up to you as a community, as policymakers, to say, you've made your decisions as to what's the priorities, and that's fine with us.
Okay.
We just want to make it all work.
And I agree, and I'm not disputing it, but what is our policy right now? If it's not level expense, if it's not level expense with contractual, it's no longer level service, because level service policy is there is no expanded services.
Well, ultimately,
So
you
if
can
there
decide,
is-
you can decide that, Jim, is what I'm saying, is that, and then you have to decide what's more important. Does it make sense to expand that services? Because in some cases, it made perfectly good sense to do that. Or you can say, no, we're going to hold the line, and this is the way it's going to be. You do have that option, because the way our revenues have played out, and you've done a pretty good job of managing those revenues over time, that you'll have those options to consider.
So that's really the question that's on the floor here for both policy boards, is, what direction would you like to provide?
So if I look at last year, there was probably a little bit of discussion, but last year was the direction from both boards, level service or enhanced service?
I think it was a level services with enhancements.
I think, Jim, if I may, I see what you're trying to say, but it's a bit of a moving target, the services part of it, because I understand what you're saying. I think we all want to keep it at level services, but then you have to define what are our services. And our budgets are student-driven. So it's really dependent on what our student needs are. How many kids need a one-on-one? How many ed assistants do we need to have? And then we make reductions based on, we eliminated positions, but we added positions. So is that level services, or is that services with enhancements?
And I agree, and I think
I'm not
you're saying-
arguing with you. I'm just saying I think it's not a simple bright line rule for any of our departments, but I'm speaking solely on the school side, but I think it's the same with our other departments. Sometimes things come up and you need to adjust based on what that particular department's need is.
I agree, and that's why when I'm asking over the next 5 years,
Yeah.
and I'm hearing we're level service, I remember when the economy dropped, and there was this real struggle between standard budget and we lay off or make cuts, or suck it up and pay for whatever services, but they're not going to go. Now, in times when we have extra money, that level service, level budget discussion stopped, right? And things, because there's no stresses there. We're calling it level service, but I can count all the things that we've done in the last couple, there's no way they're level service. So we're either going to be honest and get rid of calling it a level service, or we're going to say expanded service.
You're taking from one to give to the other, so I would consider it level service with expansion, but that would be level service. If you're taking from one to give to the other.
But not if you add a new service, you take from one, you have the option of, if there's a push down in the budget and you can make that savings, it's a savings, you don't add another service. But now we have the luxury of making a savings here and adding a service. So it's adding services and keeping the same budget. But if we're going to do it, let's state that that's what we're doing and not calling it level service.
So are
I
you,
think that you're right in what you're saying, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag in the sense that, so this 5-year projection basically is tying us to numbers, not tying the school department or the town side to a number, but it's tying that year to a number. So that's not negotiable. We can't expend more than what's in that year unless we want to blow the whole schedule away from here. So that's where both your board and this board has to have a level of control, realizing there's already a number in effect that's out there that you can't just add services and go beyond because the money isn't there.
Correct. So looking at it from a school, your service is providing the best education. So you can not saying you can't justify it, but here, we can add another department. We can say everyone gets a free mailbox and it's a whatever, because people want it. We save in this department, we can afford it, and now people are getting things that they never asked for in this year, but because it's in the budget, we're adding it. So it's a little different. And so I guess this is on the Selectmen side. Are we happy, are we content saying it's level service? And if that's the case, if somebody wants to make a change, they got to come in front of us because it's a policy change.
so I think we're conflicting what level service is. I think level services is year over year. And you can't go back and compare the services you have today to what you had 3 years ago and call it, oh, we have enhanced services now, which may in fact be true, but it's level services year over year. So I just think we have to be careful what we're referring to as level services.
I think
I was just going to say, to Tina's point here, when we think about the schools and the needs, we're student, like she said, we're student-driven. And we also have things that come in that we can't control when we have, whether it's one-on-one aides or special ed students that require services. When we think about social emotional health, looking at being able to meet the needs of a population that's changing. And in 5 years from now, we don't know what that's going to look like. So we need to be able to respond to those needs.
I think the way the direction is normally been given on our side, I'm not going to speak for your side because I don't deal with the budget, but the direction normally for our side is it's a level funded budget, a level service budget, unless we come forward and defend what the need is, and then they have the decision to say yes or no.
Yeah.
But again, now they've got one more constraint on top of that. They've got the dollar factor that we can't go beyond, which we didn't have as much pressure on before because we had the resources. We want to tap a little bit more here. We can ask the town to tap a little bit more there. That's just not going to be there now.
So to provide you a little bit of guidance here, I mean, if you take a look at the 4 options that are listed there, we're really talking about the last 2, C and D, right? And level services is typically would mean that there's really it's pretty much the same services across the board with no changes. What we've been living with is D, effectively. And it's the area which I would suggest to you probably to stay with. And the reason why I say that is because it gives you the most flexibility. The only flexibility you have is what the service is. It's not the dollar, because the dollars are limited by the process. So in other words, because priorities change. Your priorities change as a board, your priorities change as your board. So it gives you flexibility if you need that option to do that and look at those things. So my suggestion to you is stick with D. You don't have to agree with me or not. You're free to say no. But I'm saying that to you because it makes the most sense process-wise. Ultimately, the amount of money that we have is what we're limited by. And I think the most recent limitation of that has been the most is the new project, new Borough School. Because that put downward pressure on the process, so therefore, we're limited by the dollars. What we're gonna do going
So I'd definitely be comfortable with going forward with D.
And that's why I qualified it, I don't know if everybody knows the acronym, but considered if within the LRP, the long-range plan. So it either fits or it doesn't within the plan, and it either fits or it doesn't with the policy boards.
Did you have anything else, Jim? Leah, do you have any questions?
Not at this point in the process.
All right, I think we're good.
Good discussion, thank you.
Well, thanks, Randy, and thank you
We
guys
just
for...
need to close our meeting, school committee. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to close our meeting.
Thanks, we're adjourned. Thank
Thanks.
you all.
And we have 2 more minutes, and we'll start our regular Board of Selectmen meeting. All right, we're going to get back started with our the Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm going to read the agenda, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. So 7 o'clock, citizens input. 7:05, public hearing, UMass versus BYU football game. 7:20, public hearing, Big Night Ventures LLC, doing business as the Scorpion Bar and Mexican Cantina. Manager David N. Murray, approval of extension of all alcohol serving license. 7:35, town citation for Eagle Scout Thomas Perry Jr. 7:45, approve the appointment of Elizabeth Foster to the Council on Aging and Human Services Advisory Board. 7:50, place a menorah on the town common. 8:05, Colwen Management, Inc., doing business as the Renaissance Patriot Place, request of change of officers. 8:20, Neponset Reservoir NRRC update discussion. 8:40, Selectmen's update. 8:45, Town Managers update. 8:50, Assistant Town Managers update. Then we have some action items, and then we will be going into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. We will not be coming back into open session after executive session. So with that, TJ, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's 7 o'clock. Anybody here for citizens input? Seeing nobody.
Just an update on that, Mr. Chairman. The last time you had a meeting, there was a gentleman that was here before you about a drainage issue on Elm Street. We did meet with that gentleman.
Okay.
And we are working towards a resolution on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. It is actually 7:05, so we will open the public hearing, UMass football game. Yep.
The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 140, Section 181 and Section 183A, and Chapter 136, Section 4, Code of the Town of Foxborough, Chapter 229, and also Stadium Rules and Regulations, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, October 30th, 2018, beginning at 7:05 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, to review the application submitted by NPS LLC, Craft Sports and Entertainment LLC, for the UMass versus Brigham Young University football game. This event is proposed for Gillette Stadium. Application for this event is on file at the Office of the Selectmen. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Good evening. Good. Phil.
Thank you. So I'm Phil Butterfuoco with Gillette Stadium, and we propose that UMass host Brigham Young University on Saturday, November 10th. Kickoff is scheduled for 12 o'clock. Parking lots will open at 9 o'clock, gates at 10:30. Game should end somewhere in the 3:15 range, and the lots would close at roughly 5 o'clock thereafter, is from a tailgating standpoint and all. It is going to be high school band day, which we've done many times in the past.
We'll have approximately 70 high schools bands here for the day. That'll be somewhere in the 2,500 to 3,000 high school students that will have the experience of playing at Gillette Stadium with the UMass band. Those bands will arrive in the morning. They will practice on the field pregame. They will all perform on the field at halftime of the game, which is an exciting opportunity for them. And then the UMass band will close out the day at the end of the game with about a 20-minute to 30-minute presentation, if you will, for their families and the high school bands after the game concludes. We will be selling alcohol only on the east side of the 100 level bowl. It will be a 100 level only event with the East Club. The Brigham Young community does not drink alcohol, so we will not have any alcohol on the west side of the stadium. We anticipate that we'll have somewhere in the 10,000 paid attendance, and then the high school band members on top of that. So we'll be somewhere in the 12,000, 12,500 range, all told in the stadium that day.
Randy Berg, Stadium Advisory Committee. This is not a new event since UMass held their home games at Gillette in 2016, I believe it was.
All the way back to 2010.
But yeah, after review of the application covering all the issues, we unanimously voted to recommend the approval of the application.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions?
No.
Dave, no?
Nope.
Do you have any questions?
Good.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anybody from the audience have anything? We have a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made, second. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Right.
All right, move to approve UMass versus BYU football game at Gillette Stadium on Saturday, November 10th, 2018.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. See you. All right, TJ, we're going to be able to get you home early. Come on up. So we have TJ here. We're going to read a citation. TJ had his Eagle ceremony. Was the ceremony last April?
Yeah.
And we apologize as a board. Life just gets in the way, and we couldn't make it. And seeing that Mr. Feldman's such a persistent pest, we kept pushing us to get this done. So, and we wanted to line everything up. So we wanted the public to recognize you. I'm going to read the citation, and then I want to talk a couple minutes about your project and how great Troop 7 is. So official citation, Foxborough Board of Selectmen. Board of Selectmen, on the occasion of the Eagle Court of Honor, commends Thomas Perry Jr., Troop 7, Boy Scouts of America, in achieving the highest rank of Eagle Scout. Recognition is given to Thomas Perry Jr. for your Eagle Scout project for organizing and directing the development and building of a 125-foot paved stone path from the parking lot of the original Congregational Church in Rentham, Mass. To the church office at the side of the building. May this recognition express our appreciation for the many hours spent in securing donations, recurring and directing over 30 volunteers, and for obtaining all the materials necessary to complete the project. This path allows parishioners a safe walking area to the church office by avoiding a busy roadway. Congratulations on your achievement to the rank of Eagle Scout on April 5th, 2018. We would like to commend you on your dedication to the Boy Scouts, earning a total of 28 merit badges, and for the leadership skills you have developed in your years of scouting. We wish you continued success in your future endeavors. You have set an example for others to follow. The Board of Selectmen are very proud and grateful for your successful efforts and would like to join your fellow Scouts, families, friends in paying honor and tribute to you for this splendid achievement in earning the rank of Eagle Scout of the Boy Scouts of America. This citation is given under the seal of the town of Foxborough on this 11th day of September 2018. So congratulations, first off. Congratulations to Mom and Dad, too. I know what it takes to do that. You want to just explain briefly your project and how you got the boys involved and the troop involved?
Of course. So like you said, I built a 125-foot paved stone walkway for my church in Rentham. In total, I think amassed around 180 man-hours, using about 30 scouts and probably around 10 adults over the course of 2 days, I think it was. Yeah, it was a great experience. I had a lot of help from donations from a lot of people in the church. And all it took was just for me to ask my fellow scouts to help me, and they were so gracious to do so. And I got a lot more people than I expected to help me, and it was a great experience, yeah.
So you still active in the troop, or have you aged out yet?
No, I'm 16 right now, so I have a couple more years left. And I am not as active as I would like to be due to school and sports and all that, but I do attend occasionally the meetings and campouts and whatnot.
That's good. Just so a little back history, Mr. Johns was a former Scoutmaster of Troop 7. I took over for him. I don't think we ever had an Eagle Scout at 16. Ours were always sliding in at the 11th hour, getting the signatures the day of their birthday, or, you know, so that's good. Long history of it's a great troop. All the troops are good. But now I congratulate you. Anybody on the board have anything to say or offer?
No, instead of just having one or two of us at your ceremony, you get all of us. Persistence pays off.
Board of Selectmen Court of Honor. I think we have a couple minutes. Do we want to get a group photo of us presenting this to TJ?
May I offer?
Sure. Yeah.
So here tonight, you're surrounded by 3 former Scoutmasters from Troop 7. Your dad, of course, right behind you, Mr. Mitchell as the chair of the board, and myself. And I have to point out that TJ, I remember when you first joined Troop 7, you and your dad came and we folded, we learned how to fold the American flag, and you know, it was great getting to know you, your dad, your family. But I also want to point out what a great leader you are, and to the folks here, how humble he is. When he said all he had to do was ask, it takes a lot more than that. It's charisma, it's leadership, it's being a mentor, because your friends, these 30 folks, 30 people you asked, could easily have said, no, I'm busy, or I can't do it, or whatever. So there was something exuding from you that drew them to give up 2 days to come and work with you. You know, probably most of them, it wasn't their church. It certainly wasn't their project, so hats off to you to being a great leader.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, you want to do a quick picture? Sure. We'll come out front there.
Yeah, we'll seal.
Seal? No.
Get rid of them.
Nice tight. His dad first. That's the picture that matters.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Oops, so sorry. So sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Chairman, can I just say one thing before they leave? First of all, I just want to say congratulations to you, TJ. It's a great accomplishment for you and for your entire troop. And there's not many people that make it to the Eagle Scout level, so that's a huge accomplishment for you, and at such a young age, too. So good for you for doing it at such a young age. And congratulations to your parents. I mean, it's a testament to you as well to raise such a fine young man, and I'm sure he's got a lot of great things ahead of him. So best of luck to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good night. All right, so we have about 5 minutes before our public hearing. So do we want to knock off a few action items, or do we want to Tom, how long do you think?
Got more than 5 minutes.
All right, so why don't we take, Tom, why don't you come on up? So we're going to go out of order a little bit. Tom Freeman Jr. Request to build a menorah on the town common.
Sorry I wasn't able to get these up before. Thank you. Schematics, explanation. Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom. As comfortable as I am in the advisory committee, I'm a little bit nervous now, so I'll pretty much read from what I wrote already. Excuse me. And before you tonight, present to offer construct for the town of Foxborough its own town common menorah. I was inspired by the gesture at last year's Hanukkah display and have thought since then excuse me, about how to expand upon that symbol with one which embodies the character of Foxborough while preserving the traditions of the Jewish holiday. Excuse me. I'm very sorry. Attached, you'll see that I provide you with pictures of the menorah which I built. I have displayed in front of my house for five years now. Stands about 6 feet tall, about 4 feet wide. The one I propose to construct for the town would tower about 9 feet tall, by 8 feet wide. I'm sorry. The structure would be composed of 6 foot by 6 pressure-treated beams, stained blue, using 6 5x8 lag bolts at each cross member. I brought with me a sample of the lanterns that would be used for the lighting. My plan was to avoid flame or electricity and use battery-operated luminaires, which these basic things. Now, granted, they're not very high in wattage, as I tested on my own, but I am able to, I've been working at trying to configure a way possibly that it would be done with electricity, with light bulbs that would be of higher caliber. But when I was really just planning this thing out, I wanted to be as accommodating for wherever it would be located on the common, whether or not electricity would be available or having wires or whatever all over the place. Didn't think that would be safety-wise, and I wanted to be something as self-contained as possible for portability and for structural soundness. But that can be accommodated too if there is electricity available, and whoever the committee or whoever is going to be in charge of that decides where they want to have it displayed. The ends would be capped off as shown in the diagram provided. It was planned to use 6-inch diameter plastic tubing buried 3 feet down in the designated spot, which would be capped off after the structure was removed. This has provided stability for the menorah in my front yard through strong winds. So the beam, the diagram of my picture there, it's about 2 feet, 2.5 feet that goes into the ground. It's just PVC piping, and it fits to the exact diameter of the beams. So there's no shaking, no moving around, and it's something in my house. I just put like a stone over it for the rest of the year, and I go back to it and get plants around it. So it's not really an obstruction otherwise. I just keep the sod off to the side, and then 8 days later I put it back on top, and just make sure I remember where to mark it for the next year. My hope is that this will be a project that can be seen as distinguished, solemn, and reverent. My intention is to give something back to the town that can speak to its inclusivity of a community that I have been told is a significant population. I greatly appreciate the efforts by the Mansfield Temple to initiate the new Hanukkah tradition on Foxborough Common, and do not want this offer to be seen as a one-upsmanship. In fact, prior to my current front yard display, I had constructed a menorah from tiki torches. One night, after one of their congregants drove past my house on his way home from work, I had several men from the temple show up on my doorstep to tell me how impressed they were with such a public display, with my front yard ablaze. Rather, I saw this as an opportunity to enhance the celebration with an identifiable Foxborough image. I want to thank you for your time, and hopefully your faith in me that I can deliver on this project and make Foxborough proud for years to come. Sorry, very nervous in that situation. But
anybody have any questions, concerns? One quick thing, have you checked with like DPW digging a hole up there and?
No, I haven't, because I didn't want to, project
Yeah.
something that I thought was a go without having approval first, and then also, like I said, whether or not it can be decided by greater powers that we want this electric. I knew flame probably wouldn't work out there, but whether or not it would be battery powered or electric, that might determine where it's going to go, and then I'd be told where it would fit. But I was pretty much concerned about the construction as opposed to location, and so I would leave that up to the powers to be as to where they want it, whether they want it on the south side or if they want it on the north side. I don't know.
Jim, I have news for you. Electric won't work either, because it's we're challenged out there in terms of the electricity. But one of the things that I would, and certainly Tom's right, we want to make sure that the board finds this acceptable before we embarks on that effort. But certainly in terms of construction and the process itself, I'll work with Tom and DPW to get that coordinated.
Yeah, I mean, does anybody have any issues with him looking into this? I mean, I think conceptually, I'm fine with it.
I mean, this is many times to be the Foxborough's property. I mean, and you would be able to, and obviously somebody would have to then decide who would be responsible for its upkeep in the off-season and where it goes from there. But I can certainly work with whoever I need to go to direct with that after that. And,
we'll work with DPW and probably Dave Laliberty on that piece of it.
All right.
And Tom, it might not be a bad idea to touch base with the Historic Commission and Jack Arthurlet. Usually when people come in, like even the rec department, a municipal department goes in front of them for the picnic. Those are permanent ones, but just as a courtesy to let them know what you're doing. I can't imagine them having an objection, but there's only limited space, and I think most people just go in front of them to ask for their blessing.
I know it's town common. I couldn't come up with cast iron, so.
Well, it might be worth collaborating with the JCs too, because they're up there with, doing the decorating.
Fresh scene on the other side, right?
Yeah, so okay. Yeah, no, but I think we're all good with at least kicking the can further down and getting all the right people together to figure out how to make it work and where to place it.
Okay. It should take only just about a weekend to put it together once it's, get the assignment for that. So.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the water.
Oh, no problem. All right, 7:20-ish. Public hearing, big night venues, Foxborough LLC. You want to read the public hearing, Leah?
Yes. The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, October 30th, 2018, beginning at 7:20 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, on acceptance of the provisions of MGL laws, Chapter 138, Section 33B, sales of alcoholic beverages, by Section 12, on-premises license, on Sundays between 10 AM and 12 PM, and certain legal holidays for Big Night Ventures Foxborough LLC Incorporated, doing business as the Scorpion Bar and Mexican Cantina, 253 Patriot Place, manager David Murray, and to approve the hours of a common vic and 7-day entertainment license for the established hours of operation. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Good evening.
Good evening.
State your name for the record.
Kristen Scanlon for the licensee. David Murray, manager of record. The request before you this evening, as the ad indicates, is to move the hours of operation till 10 AM on Sundays and certain legal holidays. As the board is aware, this licensee last year did request and was approved for an 11 AM opening on Sundays, which occurred without incident last year. So they're essentially back trying to do the same thing except 1 hour earlier. They will provide an offering of a full menu upon opening, and the request is, as I indicated, to include all Sundays, not just game days, as I know that was the original request last year, so that they can accommodate for certain private events or buyouts for other sort of events as well. They may include an expanded menu in the future beyond their full menu that they have now and the existing menu that would be offered upon opening, but it's something that they're working internally with their chefs and kitchen on. The reason for the request is for them to be able to stay competitive with several other establishments in the Patriot Place area, which already have the 10 AM opening. Although they could open and serve food, they're looking to remain competitive and advance their business as well in order to accommodate the other patrons that come into Patriot Place that can come into their establishment like they can in the other establishments to grab a beverage and a bite to eat, starting with the 10 a.m. opening hour too.
Okay. And you've been the manager there how long?
2 years now,
Okay.
since we opened.
How's everything going with the 11 a.m. opening on Sundays?
It's going well, it's just a matter of just people are still lining up. So we find that as soon as we open the door, there's a rush to get in. People are rushed to get in, have their food, get out to the game. So we think that 1 extra hour would just help us just migrate them in easier. People would just drift in rather than line up at the door.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any questions or anything?
I guess, although you're applying for every Sunday, are you only planning for game days to start, or?
Well, no, we're looking into it. Like, we've had some inquiries about, like, baby showers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We just want to give that offer to the guests so they have the ultimate experience if needed.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any questions?
No.
This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public have anything? Seeing none, you want to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made, seconded, to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Move to approve an extension of all alcohol serving license for Big Night Ventures Foxborough LLC, doing business as the Scorpion Bar and Mexican Cantina, to 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. on Sundays and certain legal holidays, as per MGL Chapter 138, Section 33B.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Is everybody here for the Council on Aging appointment? Come on up to the table, ladies. We'll get you out of here early.
Seeing that I'm the only one here.
All right, are you Elizabeth?
I am.
There you go. All right. Can you just state your name for the general public at home?
My name's Elizabeth Jean Foster.
Yeah. And we are looking to appoint you to the Council on Aging.
Right, and Human Services Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Yes. It's a mouthful.
Any questions by anybody?
I just had a question on number 6. It says, please list your special training. And you said you love people. Really?
I
think that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
No. Well, I've had 20 years up here at the CVS pharmacy, so I pretty much...
You still love people after CV,
Believe it or
really?
not, yes. I'm willing to take that challenge.
Yeah. Great.
Are you replacing someone going off the board, or is this an additional?
Who's leaving? Okay. Police Chief Murphy.
Oh, Ed O'Leary's coming off board, okay.
Okay. I had no idea all they did was... O'Leary, yeah.
O'Leary Murphy.
Well, that's pretty good. You're replacing a police chief.
I know.
Yeah.
Those are big shoes to
Yeah.
follow.
Anybody else? I mean, I'm 100% in favor of this, so we can
All
make a
right.
motion.
All right, move to appoint Elizabeth Foster to the Council on Aging, Human Services Advisory Board for a 3-year term, starting October 30th, 2018, and expiring May 1st, 2021.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Under discussion, thanks for volunteering. All those in
My
favor?
pleasure.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. We are moving right along tonight.
You guys are being awfully efficient tonight.
Yeah, things have lined up. Are you two here for the hotel, Colwyn Management? Anybody else from your party coming?
No, just the two of us.
It's not a public hearing, so we could do that now. You mind coming early and then?
You don't mind, no?
Come on up.
Bring things to a grinding halt.
Yeah.
Or you could wait a half hour.
Just state your name and and who you represent.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is John Aida, McDermott, Quilty and Miller, 28 State Street in Boston. And this is Ron Rockline, Vice President of Operations for Colwyn Management, Inc.
Excellent. All right, so we're basically just changing board.
Yeah, it's kind of restructuring, so we have an application for, it's technically a change of officers, but the president has resigned, being replaced by the vice president, Julie Scott, so she's taking that position. And the only other change is Terrence Bickhart is adding the position of chief financial officer. Other than that, there are no changes, no change of ownership, no change in day-to-day operations. So it's a bit of a housekeeping, but it is required.
Okay. All right. Any questions from anybody on the board?
No, looks straightforward to me.
Okay.
All right. Move to approve Caldwell Management doing business as Renaissance Hotel at Patriot Place application for change of officers.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Great, thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking us early, appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, going to do some action items.
All right, so the first action item tonight, move to approve Orpheum Theater one-day wine and malt beverage liquor license application for Maureen Hancock, Medium, and Rocky Horror Picture Show on Friday, November 2nd, 2018, 5:30 PM to 11:59 PM.
Second.
I should have said this before, I need to recuse myself from the discussion on this item.
Okay. So motion made, second, Jim's recuse. Any questions from anybody on this?
I do. Has Bob Hickey been in touch with you regarding actually getting a beer and wine license?
They had some initial inquiry, but I've not heard any recent activity on that point.
Yeah, because then the next one is another one.
Yeah, I had that same question this afternoon myself.
When was the last time they got a one-day license? Wasn't it the big flurry of them towards the end of the New Year's and all that?
Right.
Okay. You had a question, Don?
Well, I was going to ask the same question, because I thought somewhere along the line they were going to ask, I mean, maybe Jim as a, now that he's sitting out there versus up here, is there a plan on petitioning for?
Just for the record, I'm a Board of Directors member. Bob Hickey is our...
Do you want to sit at the table just so people can hear it?
We know this is new to you, so just speak loudly.
Again, for the record, I'm president of the Board of Directors. Bob Hickey's our director, staff. So I expected him to be here, but I think it's just a little early.
Yeah.
So we are in the process of applying for a full liquor license. We've gotten all the members to submit their queries, the paperwork's done. A little bit of a holdup because as part of the liquor license, the Orpheum is restructuring a room inside to have a cafe. So the architectural plans are done, and any day now we're going to submit for the full liquor application. So it's almost there.
Question then, if you, I wasn't sure if you could answer questions on this. Now, these events, we have the one that we just discussed, and then there's one right after it. Like with the Rocky Horror Picture Show and this Maureen Hancock, I mean, this has been going on before, so why is there a need? Like I said earlier, there was a big flurry towards the end of the year, December holiday party to get one-day liquor license, and then I don't believe we've had another application for one, and now we are. So is there anything that's...
Yeah, the Maureen Hancock, I think this is her third or fourth time coming, and
Okay.
she has wine and what have you. And I think the other one is, on a day-to-day, I'm not in charge of the management of it, but I think it's for Senator Feeney's anticipated celebration or whatever you want to call it. Those are the two.
Okay.
So I think by this time, we were hoping to have a full liquor license, but it just hasn't happened.
Okay. Leah, you have anything?
No, not at this time. That has not been asked.
Okay. So motion made, second, we discussed it. All those in favor? Aye.
All right, and the second one, similar to what we just talked about, move to approve Orpheum Theater one-day wine and malt beverage liquor license application for Senator Paul Feeney election night on November 6, 2018, from 7 PM to 11:59 PM.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next one, move to, well, maybe if you get back up here, Jim, actually. Coming back up? No, I said I'm waiting for you to come back up before I keep going. No. We're not surprising you with another one. All right, move to approve a one-day auctioneer's license for Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, Needham, Inc., on November 3rd, 2018 at Gillette Stadium.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to accept a gift donation of $37 from Anonymous for a program at the senior center.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to accept a gift donation of $670 to the Foxborough Recreation from Foxborough Youth Football for the shared payment towards work on irrigation pump.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from October 2nd, 2018.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That was the last action item.
Okay. The next actual thing on the agenda would be the NRCC thing at 8:20. Is there any way you can
We can try to text.
get a
them.
message? I mean, they don't have to get here right this second, but, I mean, we're going to be...
I said we've
Yeah.
got one from the NRCC.
I'm not on the commission, I'm just here in support of.
support
We
of...
recognize you as a follower, a faithful attendee.
So in the meantime, we can go through Selectmen's update, Town Manager update, Assistant Town Manager update, and then might have to have a 10-minute break or something. So, Selectmen's update, does anybody have anything?
I do.
Yes, sir.
So everybody's well aware of the success the varsity girls soccer team has had this season. They won the Hockomock League. They're well on their way to hopefully a deep run in the tournament. But there's a quiet little secret that nobody knows about, and that's the freshman girls soccer team who completed the season going 15-0-1. They started out with 14 girls. Through injuries, many games they played with 11. Sometimes they only played with 10. They gave up a total of 6 goals the whole season. So I think the future of Foxborough soccer is very bright. But you know, freshman sports doesn't get a lot of publicity or ink. I just thought it would be important to congratulate those girls on a great season. So, well
you need
done.
how many players to play?
11.
11 players, so.
So most of the games, they had 1 or 2 subs. So they were terrific.
6 goals all season?
They gave up 6 goals all season.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I just want to let everybody know, first of all, thanks Bob Cutler and his team for setting up the early voting going on at Town Hall. I think it's pretty much now through Election Day. I came in, it's a whole new process in here that they're doing. They're not going to be able to do that process at the Ahern, but maybe in the future. So thanks to the volunteers and the staff running that. And if anybody wants to come out and vote early and not have to wait till November 6th, I think the hours, Amanda, are on our website probably. And so I want to just thank all them. And then just a final reminder for everybody to go out and vote on November 6th. Anybody else have anything?
Just want to add, we're going to be doing the thank you turkeys for the veterans again this year. So we're just a little bit late in getting something in the paper. But if you know a veteran, or you want to help on that, let me know. You can help again this year. So we'll get together, we'll figure it out, but we bring turkeys to any veteran or family of a veteran in Foxborough. As a thank you, these kids are going to make cards, the JCs are going to make desserts, and we provide it. So we'll put something in the paper, but it's one of those things that we have to make a lot of phone calls. It's not a lot of emails and Facebook stuff, so if you know anybody, just let us know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Chris, I actually did have one.
Yep.
This Friday evening is the BIT auction, which stands for Borough Igo Taylor. It is at the Holiday Inn in Mansfield, and a lot of volunteers have spent a lot of time getting ready for that. There's a band there, a silent auction, a live auction. So ticket sales end tomorrow, and I know it's Halloween, so they want to make sure people don't forget to buy tickets
Did you get something from this board into the auction?
Yes, and we're already well up over $100 for Selectmen for a Day, so.
Nice.
So there is a live auction item to be Selectmen for a Day, read the agenda, lead the pledge, get a photo opportunity and sit here up here with us. So we've got a couple people bidding on that.
Nice. That's good. Good. All right, town manager update.
So just a couple things. First is the Southeastern Regional School District. On Saturday, November 17th, the Southeastern Regional Vocational School will hold its annual open house from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The open house is an opportunity for the general public, including community officials, to tour our facilities and see for themselves the high-quality free public education that is available to students from our 9 communities. So the open house is designed to demonstrate the variety of academic and vocational technical programs, as well as the post-secondary program offerings available at Southeastern's Technical Institute. If you're planning to attend on November 2nd, please contact 508-230-1215, and so we can arrange a private tour. And again, if anybody has any questions about that, you can contact our office, and we'll certainly provide some additional information to you if you are interested in attending that. I'm pleased to announce that we were notified this past week that the governor and lieutenant governor announced that they released an additional amount of Chapter 90 funding for the town, which was in addition to the $600,000 or so, $650,000 that we normally get as part of a Chapter 90 allotment. We received another $128,000 for a total of $772,204 for this current fiscal year. So that's good news in the sense that we have not received that level of funding since the $300 million was done when Governor Baker first took office. So we are pleased that we can use that towards additional improvements to our local roads and DPW type of improvements to the community throughout. So we're very grateful and pleased and able to accept that additional funding for the town.
Is that just a one-time?
It's just a one-time thing, right? We do get the annual allotment, which is usually in the amount of about $200 million statewide. There's been a push for a number of years to get it up to $300 million. And actually, one year that level of commitment was made, but we haven't seen that in quite some time. So this was sort of a welcome surprise to see.
Roger already have it spent?
Additional, not yet, but well, now that we know we have it, we can start looking at ways we can address that. I was able to see and thank Lieutenant Governor Polito, who was here at the annual Business Expo at the Gillette Stadium last week on Thursday, and thanked her personally for that commitment to the cities and towns, particularly for the town of Foxborough. So last Thursday, I was able to attend the Rail Coalition meeting that was held in Foxborough. In Framingham. That was a meeting of all the rail communities throughout the MBTA corridor, and we were able to participate in those discussions to get updates on how the MBTA system is working, also to get some latest support or indication of what their plans are for the next several years. Followed that, there was the National Grid had its annual meeting up at Gillette Stadium on the other side of the stadium, and the annual Business Expo was on the other side, so it was sort of an all-day event involving Gillette Stadium for those events. So I was able to attend both of those on the same day. So those are all good events to be part of, and I'm glad to see that there was actually quite a few businesses represented at the Tri-Town Chamber Business Expo, which was actually really well put together, and there's actually a great event. Happy to be part of that process and representing the town in that. Those are my announcements.
Good. Mary Beth?
So we'd like to announce that we'll be holding one more board and committee and employee training for code of conduct civility. Hopefully this will be the catch-all for people who couldn't make it. It'll be on Wednesday, November 14th at 3 p.m. Again, Jack Dolan will be doing the training. We're hoping to record this one, and we're hoping to include any new board appointees that would be interested in attending. We are concluding our VSO search process this week. We will be informing candidates and making an offer, hopefully by the end of the week. We had a really good field of candidates and narrowed it down. So that process will be wrapping up. We posted a position today for the assistant assessor. Our long-term, longest-serving town employee, Deb Cochran, you may remember she cut the ribbon at the ribbon cutting. She has announced her retirement, and so we've posted that position and want to call people's attention to it. It's on the website. We also will be working, Mike and I will be working closely with the police department on upcoming position openings, an impending retirement, and promotional process. So we'll be working closely on the civil service mechanics. I'm happy to share all that clunky stuff with Mike. It's quite an involved process. And then finally, I had the great pleasure last Thursday to represent your board and our administration at the Kennedy Donovan Center's 50th anniversary kickoff. I presented a Board of Selectmen proclamation, and that it kicks off the whole year of events for them. It's their 50th anniversary year. I presented the proclamation to Ted Carr. He was the great-nephew of Luella Hennessy Donovan, the founder of the Kennedy Donovan Center. Really learned so much about their history. She was the nurse to Rosemary Kennedy, one of the Kennedy children, who had special needs, and she started this in the basement of the Blessed Sacrament Church with 4 children. She started this, and her family has carried on the tradition for 50 years, and it's become, they've served over 10,000 people, and they are just growing and very, very successful. I was thrilled to be a part of it, and they'll be in touch. There's a gala scheduled and lots of other events coming, but I was pleased to be a part of it. That's all that I have.
Excellent. Mike, you got anything?
Just a couple of things. Folks will remember that years ago we had a safe Foxborough, which was substance abuse sort of thing in town Foxborough. We continue to be part of the Safe Coalition, which has joined us with many of our surrounding communities and brought greater resources towards addressing the opiate and other substance abuse issues that are going on in the community. So we've, this started in the Franklin area and has expanded, and we're very happy and proud to be part of that. They came to our employee health fair last month, and it was great. Couple of collective bargaining agreements that we continue to work on, and we're getting close to closing. One is with the police department, the other one is with the library. So Mary Beth and I and Bill have been hard at work on those, and we're happy that they seem to be going very well, and should be wrapping up soon.
Dispatch as well. Dispatch
and dispatch, yes.
Has effectively been resolved. We're bring that forward to town meeting.
Two other quick things, just to follow in to what Jim was saying about Thanksgiving and the turkeys. This has been going on for, I forget how many years now, but it's been very well received in the community, and the folks that have supported it have been terrific. So folks that traditionally have contacted the Veteran Services Office if they'd like to participate in that as far as receiving a turkey. So they can call 543-1204, and the Veteran Services Department will connect them with that. And folks looking to support that with donations, et cetera, can either contact that same number or contact Selectman DeVellis. And again, that's been just a very successful program. One last thing is that we just connected with a very important and noteworthy keynote speaker for our Veterans Day program. His name is Doug Horka. He's a very highly decorated Vietnam veteran who was involved as a PJ, or an Air Force pararescueman, in the largest rescue during the Vietnam War. So he's going to be coming to Foxborough from West Boylston, and I will introduce him, and we're just very happy that he's agreed to come to Foxborough and be part of our great program. And the reason I mention it now is for folks planning, that's going to be on Monday. So we usually do it on November 11th, which is actual Veterans Day. This is going to be on the Monday of that holiday, so as not to conflict with church services and all that. So it'll be on Monday, 11 o'clock at Foxborough High School. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. I was going to actually ask you about that, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yes, so that's November 12th, the Monday.
Yeah.
11 a.m. you said?
11 a.m.
at the high school.
November 12th at the high school auditorium.
Yeah, I know the tradition of doing it on the 11th day, the 11th hour, 11th month, but I think it's the right decision where it falls on a Sunday, and good. All right, we are out of things to do. I would suggest we take about a 15-20-minute recess, stretch our legs, wait for the NRCC to come.
Yeah, I texted them, but.
Yeah. All right.
There's some stuff to sign.
Yeah, we can do some signatures. So we'll be back in no later than 8:20.
20 minutes you taking?
We're waiting for everybody to show up.
Okay, thanks, everybody. We're back 8:20. The next item on our agenda is Neponset Reservoir NRRC update and discussion. So if you guys want to come up to the table. Just let everybody at home know who we all are.
Okay, we're, all four of us are on the NRC committee on the board of directors. I'm Rick Lewis.
Cindy Tracy.
Kim Mellon. I'm Mary Peterson.
Thanks.
So I think really Bill should just really summarize where we're at, Bill, and with the great feedback we got. And
yeah. So thank you, Doc, and Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's the last meeting, the direction from the board and from the commission was to try and get together. So we put together a small subcommittee made up of Doc, myself, and Rick to figure out the final language in the letter that was drafted as an initial go through for the meeting of the last time the board met. We did do that. We did that a matter of a couple days after that meeting. We were able to go through it. Made a few adjustments to the letter, and I think there are just a couple small ones which Rick handed me tonight that don't really change the intent of the letter. They're just some wordsmithing, and so I think we're ready to go. I think we're ready to get this letter out as of Thursday. So my goal is to have the letter out by Thursday. I'm seriously contemplating whether I should drive it down there because it's not that far. That way we'll assure they have it, and I'll receive confirmation that they have it in their hands, and so that way we know they've got it. So that might be the best way to deal with it. Not worry about the mail and everything else, and snail mail and all that stuff. So that's what I'm thinking about doing next Thursday, the day after tomorrow. But the wording is fine from what everybody seems to indicate. So I appreciate all the input that everybody's made and all the effort everybody's put into this. And I do have some additional letters which basically say the same thing as what we have in the body of the letter anyways. So from the other committees.
Yeah, I think overall it's been a great collaborative effort, you know, from NRCC, the town, the other committees that are involved, conservation, public health, sending back a good, agreeable letter to DEP, and done with very little yelling and screaming, and a lot of great cooperation.
Yes, we'd like to thank the board also for getting behind this and jumping right in on this. This has been a big issue to us for a long time, and really feel good that we've come together and can see that what the real issues still are that are still pending. We're getting our final edits together, and we'll have our document out tomorrow. But it'll be very similar to yours in our cover letter. And then the additional attachments will be what Paul McManus from Ecotech prepared for us for a more detailed MCP talk type of response. So that'll all be going in as well. Kim has been working on the petition that we circulated around. We had a lot of people who contacted us and said, what can we do? So that's why it prompted us to do a Facebook and a hard copy petition, just asking people, are they supporting seeing the cadmium problem addressed and dealing with that? And we've got, 606 signatures? 608 signatures. And we'll be forwarding those along to the DEP as well. So that's a little update from us.
Good. Anybody on the board, Jim, you have any questions?
Nice collaboration that came together at the last couple of months. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your tireless efforts, too.
Well, thank you for getting the extension.
Yes,
That was
exactly.
key. That was key to having this all come together, was really that extension. So.
And just for everybody's benefit of knowledge, I did run this by Kate Conley as well. She reviewed the letter as well, and so she thought it was fine. So I didn't make any further changes either. So I did include some of the comments. Jim had given me a couple comments too. I included the words, some of the wording in there as well. Maybe not the exact same form, but the thoughts were right in there. So I was able to include that in there too. So, okay.
Is the LSP, when he was here last time, he had given us a report, then there was a revision. Was that the final, or is he?
That was the final.
That was the final one? Okay.
Yes.
So he's got a stamp on it, he's signing it. That'll be included with all this?
Yes, it will.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Dave, any other thing to add?
No, a lot of work, a lot of conversation, and usually to get these things done takes a lot of people and a lot of conversation. So, well done.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just hope it works.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting issue that we'll have to see how this all plays out, is what the DEP thinks about it, what they respond to it, and then, how that whole process sorts itself out.
Do they have a timeline where they have to respond to us with it?
Typically, it's 90 days, but I'm not sure that they're really obligated to stick within that. But that's the standard response time to things like this would be. But the process is going to be, they get the comments, they relay those comments on to Schneider. Schneider relays those comments on to Woodward and Curran, their consultant. Then they have to prepare their responses to comments. So if that's done in 90 days, they could also ask for an extension. It's kind of open-ended a little bit as to how long that'll actually take. But hopefully, based on the last couple times, it's been 90 to 120 days to actually get all their comments back and have that all blessed by the DEP and then out for circulation so we get to see it.
So does the whole process start over again then? Like they have to do the wonderful science project at Schneider again, and does that whole thing start, or is it like, no, we don't agree with this, so?
Yeah, it could go either way. They could either say that they disagree, and then that's kind of, and then the DEP should be the decider of do they have to. It's not really up to Schneider to agree or disagree. Well, they can agree or disagree, but then it's really up to the DEP to ask them what are they going to be asked to do, one way or the other. This could end up in another 5-year study program where they get another 5 years to answer some of these questions that we posed. I'm not sure that it warrants a 5-year study to develop that. I think they've got a lot of the data that they've developed over the years that could be used, but they may decide that it's in their best interest to spend another 5 years studying it. I'm not sure we can do much to stop that process from being another 5-year cycle, but and then we could be back here again with another whole series of discovery documents or documents for another closure request for closure. So I don't know. I think what we've asked for will force their hand to admit that there is risk associated with leaving the contamination behind. But the state seems reluctant to force them to actually do any physical cleanup. So I don't. It's hard to have the crystal ball to see how this is all going to shake out. But this was the right step. I mean, this was the right thing to do to at least make sure that all the right analysis is done, or request that analysis is done. How it's handled from here, we'll have to see.
There'll be a waiting period now. We won't hear anything from them.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's an appeals process on our end if they come back and, right?
I wish Paul was here to tell me one way or the other. I'm not sure. I'm not an LSP, so I can't say.
Okay.
I've not been on that end of it. The other cases that I've worked on professionally, when I've worked in conjunction with other LSPs, is that the comments from public groups and board and selectmen and town have usually been taken very, very seriously, and that usually has been a case where some additional study has to be done and those questions have to be answered. The Lakeville district has not been the typical response for other regions of the state. They have not acted in the same manner as other parts of DEP. So I don't know how they will react to this whole thing. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Good work, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so that concludes the regular portion, and now need a motion to go into executive session, not to come out.
Do I need to read the whole statement?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, you should.
All right, so move to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to a step 3 grievance under the police collective bargaining agreement, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and we will not reconvene in open session.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Need a roll call vote?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
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 Chris, yes. Good night, everybody.